Ladies, are you the one who gets it all done? Always pushing forward? Always striving? In the constant chase for success, when was the last time you took a moment just for you? We're always on the go, rushing from one task to the next, barely pausing to catch our breath. What if we took a moment to pause? Imagine listening in, really listening, to the wind, to your heartbeat, to your soul. What if slowing down was the key, a chance to discover a deeper connection with yourself? And from that connection expand it to those you love, to the moments that truly matter. Pause, reflect, connect. It's time to live fully from the inside out. Good morning, everyone. I'm Josette Diaz, and welcome to A Soulful Pause. And I am very excited to be bringing on my guest, and here she comes, Yavonne Butcher. Oh, I'm so sorry. Where are we? I feel like we look a little funny. Hang on. Huh. I don't know why it's acting weird on me. It's been an odd morning, everyone, so here we are. I'll fix this eventually here. Let me see.
It looks like there's 3 places, only the
Yeah, and I didn't pick the 3. Hold on, hold on. Okay, well, let's just, I got myself lost here, so sorry, guys. Hold on a second. Let me get
Well,
back.
I just wanna say thank you for inviting me on again. I had such a great time the last time, that I just really, it's a pleasure to be able to connect with you again and, connect with your audience. So thank you for having me, on here again.
Yes, I love having you here, Yvonne. I think we had such a great conversation, and I felt like we had so many other things to talk about that, we had to do it another time. So I apologize for, like, not having my, screen just got weird on me, so let me
Well,
put this.
we were talking earlier how, some things are sometimes the electronics are just
It's
off.
one of those days. I think it's definitely one of those days. So we're just gonna
Right.
go with this.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out eventually. So if I'm look like I'm looking around, it's because I am looking on my screen to see how to fix this.
That's
Okay,
okay.
I found
That's
this.
okay.
All right, I'm gonna try it a different way. Let's see. That's not working. Don't know why it doesn't want to. No. Hmm. Well, no.
Oh, we're getting close, I feel
I
like.
Yeah, I don't really understand why it's being so weird. I don't know what I did. Okay, well, this really is not what I had in mind. Why is it doing that? That's so weird. Okay. Maybe it's something to do with what I did over here.
With the introduction.
There we go.
Oh, look at
Okay.
there.
We
Learn
did it.
something new, right?
Yeah, thank you for the patience, everyone. If you're out there watching and you see this live, that's what live is all about, and it's kind of fun to do it that way. I enjoy it. It shows the imperfection of perfection.
Exactly. I just think that embracing all these moments where we're learning something new and, um, that's the one thing about social media is everybody
Mhm.
seems to be perfect and everything
Yeah,
seems to be perfect, and then people get the wrong idea that there's actually a lot of things going on in our lives that
right.
are not perfect.
It's so true. And I mean, I think that it's great to be polished, right? I mean,
Mhm.
being polished is
Professional, yeah.
helps people to understand you, maybe you sound more articulate, etc. Yet I think that when you actually are just kind of yourself,
Mhm.
and it can look a little messy here and there, and everybody is messy here and there.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of how it is.
But since I got a little off track trying to figure out our screen, I do want to give
That's
you a
okay.
proper introduction. So everyone, I'm Josette Diaz, and I'm a self-awareness coach for women in midlife. And I have this beautiful guest, Yavonne Butcher, with me, who is a author, and she also is a speaker. And Yvonne is a lifelong student of human potential and a fun-loving, introspective, adventurous soul navigating life's next chapter. And I really love the work that Yvonne does. She has been writing and speaking to pursue her passion for encouraging, empowering, and inspiring people to live from a place of wholeness and peace.
Mm.
And her book is Flourish After 50, and it explores personal growth from the intersection between science and spirituality, psychology and soul.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I just love the way that's written. It's written like a poem. It's
Uh,
beautiful.
well, and
And
I that's what I think that science and spirituality are actually, you know, coming
mhm.
together and kind of proving out each other. And
Yes, right?
I love looking at something from many different angles.
Mhm.
And when it seems to be the same thing from many different angles, I think that's where we find truth.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes, absolutely. That reminds me of, have you ever heard of the book, The Third Door?
I have not.
It was written, I read it several years ago. It was written by a young man who I think went to USD. Might be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure because he was going to The Price is Right. And, and he was doing that in part, I think, because he was, struggling through school and life of a college student. And he started to find that when you start looking at something differently, like you're saying, that there's a third door. There's always a third door. There's always
Mm,
another way, a new way. And I just enjoyed his book. It was funny and it was kind of fun and great to kind of like go through that concept and hear it from a young person's perspective in a time in their life when they were looking for answers. And so I really enjoyed the book. And and I think of that often because I agree with you. I think that when we start looking at life differently and we turn it, I have a friend who does paintings and she'll turn it upside down just to see a different perspective,
yeah.
something that she didn't notice before. And so, same kind of thing. It's like, looking for those other possibilities, being open to a different way is, I think, genius in the making.
Mhm. It's definitely opens you up for innovation and something
Mhm.
completely different. And
Yes.
so I might add that if you're in a disagreement with someone,
Mhm.
just remember there's their truth, there's your truth, and then there's another truth. And so how do we get to that different perspective
Yeah.
where both truths are considered? And that's when you get into those really win-win scenarios where both people can grow and learn and come together and compromise. So,
Yes.
it's that third door.
Right. Yeah. The other
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
Well, I wanted to kind of start us off by talking about, speaking of third ways, how to navigate uh, in midlife, we go through so many changes, right? And
Mhm.
I think most women get to this age and we start looking at things differently and recognizing so many. We talked about this the last time. And when we've shifted and gone through change, how do we then navigate our relationships and life when we've gone through that and we're now different?
That's a good question.
Good
Now that
question.
so it's really interesting. When it also reminds me of when uh, another big area of change where there's been a long-term relationship and
Mhm.
then one person changes and the other doesn't is when we have children. And when
Yeah.
those children grow up into adults and start becoming their own adult,
Yeah.
parents often have a very difficult time because they are always seeing their child as their child. And
Mhm.
so this child is now an adult and they're saying, I don't do that anymore, or I don't think that way anymore. And the parents are like, I know you don't pick up your laundry because you've never picked up your laundry. You've always been like that, blah, 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 just as an
Mhm.
example. And so that is an example. The same, very similar situation happens when we're in midlife and we've been in a long term relationship. Men and women both are changing, their bodies are physically changing. So our hormone, our chemical makeup is changing. And so with that also comes different ways of thinking. And things like, I really just don't want to do this behavior anymore because it's robbing me of my energy. It's robbing me of the things I want to do that I know that make me happy. I want to do more of what makes me happy. And this doesn't make me happy. So to make room for the things that make me happy, I have to get rid of some of the things that don't.
Mhm.
And so you've got one partner who's like, well, we've always done it this way. And another partner going, but I don't want to do it that way anymore. And so what I see happening, a lot of marriages will break up, but let me give you this example. Do you know the childhood book, Henny Penny?
Yes.
Okay, The Sky is Falling.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so say you're 2 chickens, you're a married couple and
Mhm.
you're 2 chickens, and you're rocking around under an oak tree, and one of the chickens is always going, the sky is falling," and causing all this drama, and the other chickens are going, "Oh my gosh, the sky is falling," and so they jump into that drama, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then one day, one of the chickens was like, I wonder if there is a life where I don't have to run around worried about the sky falling down. Maybe if I walk over there where there's not an oak tree, maybe it'll be different." So they get a different perspective, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what happens if that chicken goes over there? Is this chicken going to be okay with that? Are they going to be okay with that change? Or are
Mhm.
they going to panic? Or are they going to leave? Or are they going to,
Yeah.
fill in the blank?
Right.
And so when this one chicken gets a new perspective, or when we get a new perspective, that's when couples have to get super honest with each other. And I really feel like there are times they're either, and this is true with just about anything, when you're changing, the people in your life who really, really love you and you're meant to grow with,
Mhm.
from that point on with those
Yeah.
changes, those people will hold space for you. And then
Mhm.
once you get your perspective and your footing in your new perspective,
Mhm.
you then hold space for them to grow. If that doesn't happen, then the relationship's not meant to stay together. The relationship, you've learned what you needed to learn from each other. And so you go from your separate ways. And so from this new perspective of not being under the oak tree, there's a whole new world that opens up.
Yeah.
And so you're like exploring this, wow, what is life without the sky falling down? I really want to figure that out. So that's kind
That's
of a really long answer.
it's a great analogy of, you know, putting it all together in such a great way to that's understandable.
Yeah, that's my goal usually.
Yeah, I really love that because it's really true. It's like what I heard you say, and the thing that I'm pulling out from what what you said is the piece around when you start looking at what life looks like. I'm paraphrasing
Mhm.
that the other person is either going to love that, not love that, and it will either continue in strength or dissolve. And
Mhm.
so there's no real need to panic or worry because it's going to basically, I'm going to use this word, suss itself out.
Yeah. Uh,
So it just happens naturally, you
it
know?
does. But what you have to understand, though, is if you're the person who changes first,
Mhm.
is that there and you know that it's a relationship that you want to keep.
Right.
There's a moment or maybe several moments, a few years maybe, I don't know. It's different with everyone, but there's a time period where you need to hold space.
Mhm.
So if you're gonna hold space for that person as they're growing,
Yeah.
you have to be the kind of person and you have to know yourself well enough to keep a boundary. You have to know, okay, I know myself well enough that if I don't put a boundary here, we're gonna wind up right back where we were doing the
Yeah.
same thing, and I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do that anymore. I know that when my husband and I were going through this growing and changing,
Mhm.
I had a really honest conversation with him, and I said, "You know what? Right now, I'm just trying to figure out myself because
Mhm.
I haven't thought about myself in decades,
Yes.
and I don't have the capacity
Mhm.
to love you the way I have in the past right now. I only have the capacity, energy, the capacity to figure myself out. So if
Yeah.
you can allow me the space to do that and just hold space for me, things are going to work out." And they did.
Mhm.
But then, the other side of that is like, okay, so I did this growing and changing and I started setting these boundaries and it's like, okay, not
Right.
doing this, not doing
Yes.
this, not doing this. And and the other person then has to start going, "Oh, okay. Okay, I can see where this is healthier. I agree or I
Mhm.
don't agree and I leave."
Mhm. Yeah.
And so just being able to give each other space. The same thing's true with our adult children.
Yes.
The exact same thing is
Yeah.
true. It's giving them the space to become an adult
Mhm.
and loving them, and knowing that they're not gonna hate you forever,
Right.
hopefully. And anyway, so did that answer your
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and I love that you brought that in. The holding space, I think, is super important. Like,
Mhm,
it goes hand in hand, right? Like, you go through your own growth period, you make changes that fit this new, or I don't wanna say new, it's probably a truer version of yourself,
mhm. Yes, usually.
and then the partner gets to go through their own shift, either based on what's happening in the relationship through your changes, or they create their own changes that either, like you said, either fit or don't fit.
Mhm,
And I think that it's important that in a partnership that you hold space for one another in those different moments, and it has to be okay, right? You have
mhm.
to allow yourself to let go and let it be okay.
Yeah. Well, and you said a truer version of yourself. I
Mhm.
feel like we get to because there's a lot of, like, midlife crisis stuff
Right,
that
yeah.
people talk about and that people go through, and that I see is when we are feeling like we need this change, but the change needs to be something external.
Right.
When in
Yeah.
reality, there needs to be a lot of internal reflection because
Yeah.
that's the only way we get
Mhm.
to that authentic
Mhm.
self. And so it can be the more authentic you, or it could just be you reacting and thinking that the change needs to be something outside of you and not something inside of you.
Right. And I do a talk on becoming your own soulmate because we're always seeking outside of ourselves, looking for the soulmate.
Mhm.
And really, you're your soulmate.
Yeah.
And discovering what it is that you love about you.
Yeah.
Falling in
Well,
love
and
with yourself all over again, you know?
exactly. And then you show up in your relationship as
Mhm.
this whole person, not
Right.
this person that is needing the other person to be their other half or be
Yes.
validate them in any way. You're just you're really partnered. You're a real partnership
Yes.
when you're more yourself and showing up more whole.
Yes, you're not filling in the blanks for
Right.
the other person, right?
Right.
Because that's not really partnership.
Mm-mm. But it is, I think it happens because, and
Mhm.
it's normal
Mhm.
because we all have things to learn.
Absolutely.
And without that, we don't wind up not having contrast. And without contrast, you cannot have any change,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It does make sense because there has to be a way that you find that provides you with an equilibrium so that there feels like there's a harmony within yourself.
Mhm.
And, there was something I was gonna say that you said that sparked something. Oh, it flew out of my mind. It'll come back. Oh, I think it was around, oh, this was it. There's different seasons for us, right? We talk about
Yes.
this, people hear this, seasons of yourself. And, when we are in the midst of raising families, creating careers, doing all the things to become these adults that we've been
Mhm.
raised to become, and when we're in the middle of all that, we've put on different identities.
Yes.
So, and I think of identities as personas, as the masks that we wear. And so, when you become a mother, based on the perception you have of what motherhood is like, that's the persona, the identity you're wearing. And then in the marriage, you're this is what marriage is, the perception of what I think of marriage as. So there's that mask. And then when we get to the end of that piece of learning, when our children start to leave, when, we hit midlife, it is naturally the right season for us to have this evaluation.
Mhm.
And when we're having this evaluation, it's it's letting go of all those previous masks and personas, versions of ourselves that we tried on in order to get to this point. And
Exactly. Yeah.
that's when the real, evaluation comes in about what we really love, and I think that that's when, it's like the best time to do inner child work.
Yes, it really is. It's the perfect time to do that inner child work.
And I think it's an important part of midlife. Do you agree with that?
I do, I do. That playfulness, that
Mhm.
spark of curiosity,
Right.
I really think it gets underestimated
Yes.
at least in this society here in the US. I think
Mhm.
that it really a lot of people underestimate the value of that,
Yeah.
uh, in our and also, if you think about it, that it's a curiosity that doesn't have to have a plan.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
as adults, we find security in having plans. And the persona that we have, the ego that we have, struggles with that open-endedness of life usually.
Yes. Yes.
And so that childlike behavior just inserts and infuses it with that joy and that curiosity and that innovation, that we're not really used to, here in
Mhm.
the US.
It's really true. I think that we have such a big focus on accomplishment and doing. There's
Mhm.
never a lot of being,
Right.
and playfulness comes into that.
Well,
So,
and oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, feel
Well,
free.
it makes me think of also how, the unplanned,
Mhm.
which childhood play is usually not planned. I worked at a
Mhm.
children's museum, for a few years, and the biggest thing was you created things that for the public that were open-ended play, meaning there was no certain structure to anything. Like a
Yeah.
block could be a block, but it could also be a mouse trap or a Chinese wall, or
Yeah.
all of the objects are open ended. They could be used in multiple different ways. Well, you're an artist, and
Mhm.
I had a little bit of art in college,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I shared this with you or not about my college art class.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, well, I had a college art class, and we were doing sculpting,
Mhm.
and so I had this partially hard but partially soft object, and the teacher was like, "Create something like you've never seen before," and I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" And she said, "It'll speak to you. Just look at it and just ask it," I'm like, "Huh, what? Ask it?" And so I sat there for 2 hours looking at that lump and going I finally, at the end of the class, I was like, "I don't speak the same language as this thing here, apparently, because I have no idea what it's trying to tell me." She goes, "Take it home and
Mm.
just sit with it and let it speak to you." And eventually, after probably 2 hours, I started seeing, "Oh, put a line here, put a groove here, put a hole over here," and I'm hand carving all this stuff out of this
Yeah.
beautiful. And, what I learned from that is something that we learn from our childhood, and that
Mhm.
is you don't always know the next step. You don't always know what it is 10 steps from you. You don't always have the plan. You
Mhm.
just do what's right in front of you, and you
Yeah.
don't have to have the beginning, middle, and end before you take action.
Right.
Make sense with the playfulness?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that is such a great thing to bring up is like working with the unknown.
Yes.
Not knowing is actually the adventure
Mhm.
because it's allowing yourself to be in the process of unfoldment, which you're
Yes,
already in and may not realize.
yes. It just puts you in that place where you're more open to it.
Yeah, yeah. And how exciting is that?
I
What's
know.
going to happen next?
Well, then the possibilities are limitless, because if
Right.
you don't know what's next and you sit and you listen and you look around and go, "Okay, I'm ready." And then the next step presents itself and you just take that
Mhm.
next step. You don't have to know all of the steps. And
Right.
to me, that is embracing that inner child too. It's not
Yeah.
just, dancing around the kitchen while you're cooking dinner, which I love to do, but it's not just that. It's being able
Yeah.
to trust that
Mhm.
that the universe, number 1, has got your back, and that you can be in this place of joy and
Mhm.
innovation if you just open up yourself to it
Mhm. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
not demand to have all the answers, the questions answered right up front before you do anything.
Right. Well, that lends me to think about people pleasing.
Yes.
So, if you're a people pleaser, you may have a hard time with that.
Um, well, people pleasing is usually something that is you just wanna feel accepted,
Right.
and you wanna feel accepted because there's something missing. And so we'll abandon ourselves to the
Mhm.
point that we want somebody else to love and accept us. And we're usually not loving and accepting ourselves. And so that's
Mhm.
why I think it's so important in this midlife era, because we can fall into that trap of not trying to find the answers outside of ourselves instead of inside of ourselves.
Right.
And
I
so
agree with that.
pleasing ourselves first, knowing ourselves first, will help us set those boundaries and will help us then to pull out of that people pleasing, because the first person we need to please is ourselves. And that's
Yes.
not being selfish.
Mm-mm.
That is being who you really are. And the only way we can really show up in this world and be effective and be happy and free is to be ourselves.
Mhm.
That's the
I
only
al
safe space to do it.
Yes, yes, good point. Good point. I also think that people pleasing has something to do with a need to control,
It can. Mhm.
because I find that, people who and I've been this person, so it feels very much, the ability if I'm pleasing others, then I have control of my environment. I know what's gonna happen. And so that can be something that, um, to release that part of you, to not be in charge of, if I manage someone's expectations, then I have control over what's happening in my environment. And to let that go can be very hard for women, because
Yes.
then they don't know what's happening. And depending on how you grew up and what experiences you've had, that can be very scary.
Yes, and that's a really good observation that you, an analogy that you made. Um, yeah, having we as women, we have a lot of balls usually in the air,
Mhm. Yeah.
and when that happens, we almost need to control the things around us, or
Mhm.
we feel it's all gonna fall apart, right?
Right. Right.
And so when we manage the expectations and we manage the people, that is us trying to make sure that everything doesn't fall apart.
Exactly. Yeah. So you feel
Yeah.
safe. It's
Yes.
really a survival,
Mhm.
it's a
So I
survival
think you hit it on the head right there. It's really about feeling safe. It's
yeah.
not actually about control, it's about feeling
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah, you're right. So
Yeah,
controlling to feel safe.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
You want that stability, you want
Mhm.
that security, and in order to get it, you have to control, or you feel like you have to control things,
Yes.
and it's all really all it is you not feeling safe
Right.
or people not feeling safe. And so what are the things, and that's just the opportunity to go inside yourself and say,
Mhm.
"Okay, what really helps me to feel safe? What do I need to feel safe?" I can't control other people really, not
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, no.
So that really, how do I then walk through life knowing I can't really control people and those outcomes,
Mhm.
but still feel safe within myself? So those are really the introspective questions.
Yes, and that is a process
Yeah.
to get to the place where you can feel and recognize and know in your heart that no matter what happens, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That the getting to the center of your own self-reliance, I think, is such a valuable nugget to receive in midlife.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
starts to make you feel, so empowered, and you have the ability to do anything that you choose.
Yes. Yes. As a matter of fact, when you release the illusion of control,
Mhm.
that's
Mm.
when you're empowered. And
Yeah.
when you feel empowered, you actually feel safer.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're not, I think that when you recognize how powerful you are
Mhm.
within yourself, that you can really see how you you can let go of all the other expectations,
Yes.
and those expectations are what keep you caged in fear.
Those are the bars on the mental prison that you've
Right.
created.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And, they can really be bars even around your heart.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm,
That's at the root of it, definitely.
right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I really love having these
You're
conversations.
unpacking that beautifully. I love it. You don't need me here at all.
Oh, please. I love having you here. I would love to, have you back again because I think that it's just such a good conversation to have. So, I would like to know, though, I know that you have your beautiful book, and I've been watching your Instagram, and so I've seen you do your unpacking, and I'd like you to share a little bit about what you have going on right now and what you want people to know.
Wow. So many things because I can't sit still. So my book Flourish After 50, it's a self-love workbook for women. Came out the end of January and it's on Amazon. And then in April, I created a journal that
Mhm,
complements the workbook. And really, the journal is there to just give you a place to write your thoughts and
mm,
emotions you can dive deeper than maybe the workbook if
mhm.
you're one of those people that really likes to write.
Yeah.
And then just recently, we were talking about this before we started. I am putting together a workshop for people who have it on their heart to really, they've got a book they want to write, but they have no idea where to start or what to do.
Mhm.
I put together a 2-hour workshop to help people with that. So,
That's so awesome.
yeah, and my husband and I are working on another book. So, but I'm not going to talk about
Oh,
it till it gets further down
okay.
the road. So,
That's beautiful. I love that. Well, then
yeah.
I'm glad we covered what we covered earlier.
Uh,
That's nice.
yeah.
Very nice. So I want to thank you, Yvonne. I really enjoy having these conversations with you. I think you're such a lovely guest, and you have so much to give to women that are, flourishing in 50 and beyond. And it's just such a pleasure to get to spend time with you. So I want to thank you for coming and being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I just really, really enjoy it. And we're going to have to like go have coffee sometime
Yes,
because, or
yes,
maybe
I
since we
would
live
love
so
that.
far apart, maybe we can do like a Zoom coffee or something and
Yeah,
just
we
chat.
definitely will.
Uh,
That
'Cause
would
I
be
I
lovely.
just so enjoy it, and, I'm just grateful that, you've have had me on and invited me on, and we've had these lovely conversations. I really believe in your work.
Oh,
I
thank
think
you.
that you have a program that is amazing for women, and, I'm super excited to see all the growth that you have.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, and back at you.
Thank
Love
you.
what you're doing. All right, everyone, we will see you next week, and have a wonderful weekend, and thank you again.
Bye-bye.